Hello, and welcome to this workshop on embracing self-love. I am Hannah Stinson. I am your divine somatic healer. I am a mental health advocate, and I am a wellness practitioner as well as a yoga teacher. And I'm here to lead you through this workshop. So I'm going to share my screen and let's get started. Okay, present. So here we are, embracing self-love. So this is a workshop that was designed and inspired by the Stomach Cancer Sisters by Abby and Lexi. Abby was a dear friend of mine, and we are continuing on her legacy. Even though her physical body has left us, her soul is always with us, as well as Lexi. And the amazing Hope for Stomach Cancer is our sponsor, and then I am Hannah of Healing with Hannah, who runs these workshops. Now, before we begin, this is just a reminder that this is not medical advice, that I am not a therapist, I am not a doctor, I am a wellness practitioner and a yoga teacher and all the other things that I said. So I'm coming at this from my own perspective, from the work that I used to do when I was an addictions counselor, as well as the work that I do now in my business with my clients. And I've seen time and time again the lovely results that come when we embrace self-love from the perspectives that I'm going to teach today. Now, if at any point you are feeling overwhelmed with your emotions, always remember to reach out to a professional. And if you're having any issues with pain, discomfort, to always remember to reach out to your doctor. So I always just like to start with that. Now, welcome. Like I said, I am Hannah Stinson. I'm so happy to be here. I feel so honored to be able to run these workshops. They are really near and dear to my heart. So I am a chronic illness warrior. I live with liver disease and endometriosis, which is a chronic reproductive hormonal autoimmune disease. And when I really started on my journey of healing, healing my physical body, my emotional, my mental, my spiritual, I found that I didn't really have anyone to guide me. And it was really up to me to figure out how to work to heal all these different aspects of myself while living with chronic illness. Because of course I deal with pain and discomfort, chronic fatigue, indigestion, all the different symptoms that come along when you have multiple chronic illnesses. But I was also finding that it was really starting to affect my mental and emotional and spiritual health. So over the last 10 years, I've dedicated my professional and personal journeys to creating safe spaces to really heal ourselves on a multitude of levels. So welcome. Our agenda today, we are going to be talking about the autonomic nervous system as well as the central nervous system. Just basic understandings. I think it's really important that we understand both of these because they're imperative to our healing. And so often when we're working with mental health, we think about just our mind and we forget about our bodies. But our minds are a part of our bodies. And when we heal our central nervous systems, we actually are more able, to heal those negative thought patterns, anxiety, depression, PTSD, and all these other mental ailments or mental illnesses that are out there. We're going to talk about creating internal safety for self-love because that is imperative. In order to love ourselves, we must feel safe within our bodies. We're going to talk a bit about some different self-love practices, and then I will share some journal prompts, which I'll give an opportunity for you to write down, and you can do them on your own time, and then ending with a self-love meditation. So let's just get right into it. So what the heck is the autonomic nervous system? Well, the autonomic nervous system, in my opinion, is an example of modern magic within our body. So it operates by receiving and interpreting information from our environments and from different parts of our body. The sympathetic system responds to our environment really quickly, mobilizing our body for action. That's like, when you go into a trauma response of fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Those are our 4 trauma responses. While the parasympathetic system slows down our response to our environment. And so that will happen actually when you go into a dorsal state, and dorsal is actually after the sympathetic state, because dorsal is when we kind of go into shutdown, lethargy, depression, and so forth. And so these two actually really work really well together to manage our body's needs depending on the situation. So this all happens like automatically, which is why you might think the term autonomic, right? Automatic, it makes a lot of sense, right? So just so you have some ideas of what the heck our autonomic nervous system does, it regulates our body temperature, it assists with our blood pressure, our breathing and respiratory rate, how we digest, the elimination process, so when we use the washroom, our emotional response to our environments, the balance of our electrolytes in our body, our heart rate, our metabolism, our production of bodily fluids, examples saliva and sweat, and then our sexual response as well. So our autonomic nervous system is doing all of this, and we don't even have to think about it. So like that's pretty cool. And it's really something that's very special because it's helping us, you know, live our lives and respond accordingly. So I wanted to just note though the difference between our CNS, central nervous system, ANA, autonomic nervous system. So our central nervous system is referring to the part of our nervous system consisting of the brain and the spinal cord, right? While our ANS, I made a spelling mistake, is our autonomic nervous system, which is referring to the part of the nervous system responsible for the coordination of involuntary functions of the body. Like I said earlier in that other slide about the functions of the autonomic nervous system, they're involuntary because we don't have to think about them. We don't have to worry. That's just what's happening. But when we are living with a dysregulated nervous system, which we're going to talk about with the CNS, then our autonomic nervous system isn't always functioning to its utmost level, right? When you're living with cancer, your autonomic nervous system could be struggling in certain areas because your body is under constant stress, going through doctor's appointments and tests and chemo and radiation and surgeries and recovery. All of that is trauma on the body. And so our body acts accordingly to that trauma, whether it's real or perceived, whether it's emotional, mental, physical, spiritual, energetic, okay? So now that you have an idea what the heck our autonomic nervous system is, let's talk about creating internal safety for self-love. So that's going to start with healing our central nervous systems, okay? We live in a society that has really conditioned us to live in scarcity and survival. And that causes us to live in a state of dysregulation rather than being internally regulated. Ventral is our regulated state. This is where we experience joy, receive and give love, experience pleasure, and live in internal abundance. And so living from ventral, I truly believe, is our birthright. But so many of us don't know how to get our bodies back to ventral, okay? So this is why it's so imperative that we know and understand how we can heal our central nervous systems so we can create that internal safety to cultivate and embrace self-love. So like I say here, when we're functioning from scarcity and survival, this will cause our nervous systems to get dysregulated, right? It's like we go into a trauma response. I like to think of the central nervous system and the phases we go through as like a ladder. And so the top would be ventral. Then when we're triggered, we go into our trauma response with the sympathetic nervous system. And then after that, if we don't know how to get back to ventral and we live in our sympathetic state for too long, we go into dorsal, which is a dorsal vagal shutdown. And that is where we can have some serious long-term chronic problems. So we're looking at this through the lens of the polyvagal theory, which was created and coined by Dr. Stephen Porges, who is amazing. So when we recognize that healing our central nervous system is imperative to healing our body, our mind, and our soul, it really does allow us to cultivate abundance in our daily lives. And abundance is more than just money. Abundance is love, and in our relationships, and in our home, and in our practices, and in our self-love, right? So like I said, when we're activated into a trauma response and we shift from ventral into sympathetic, that's like fight, flight, but also fawn and freeze, because we have 4 trauma responses. And again, like I mentioned just now, if we aren't able to regulate ourselves, then we go into dorsal vagal shutdown. And so this is why it's so imperative to do this work. So often we are living in our trauma response, okay? This is because we are living in a dysregulated society that functions on scarcity and survival. And so when we're living in our trauma response, we're shifting between sympathetic and dorsal, sympathetic and dorsal, sympathetic and dorsal. It's almost like this like wheel, right? And that is really impacting us to stay with a dysregulated nervous system. And when we have a dysregulated nervous system, and we're just going back between sympathetic and dorsal, we're really unable to heal our trauma, our triggers, and our wounds that end up dictating our life and making it really hard for us to embrace self-love. And I see this time and time again in the clients that I work with, and I experienced this in my life for so long. But I can say that I have been doing this work actively of healing my central nervous system for the past 3 years, and it has absolutely changed my life in every way possible, especially how I show up in embracing self-love, which then in turn shows up how I communicate and respond to what goes on with my chronic illnesses and diseases. So this is really important healing, especially when you're living with cancer or, like me, with multiple chronic illnesses. And anyone, really. It doesn't have to just be us. It could be anyone. I think everyone deserves to understand how to heal their central nervous systems. So ideally, we are living in a ventral state all the time where we're in social engagement and we're experiencing internal safety. But like, we're human beings. We're not always going to stay in a ventral vagal state because we're living the full human experience. And so that means that we are like hardwired to protect ourselves from a threat. And like I said, that can be perceived or real, right? Like our bodies and our minds don't know the difference. So we have the same reaction, whether it's perceived or real. So that means we'll go into in between sympathetic and parasympathetic states within our autonomic nervous systems, right? And so the idea is that, you know, you're in ventral, you're experiencing joy and pleasure, and then something happens, you're triggered and you go into a sympathetic state. Well, now I'm going to teach you tools to get back into ventral so you don't stay in sympathetic and then potentially go into dorsal. And then you have to go back through sympathetic to get to ventral, right? So it's like a ladder. So you really have to make sure that you have the tools so you're not constantly going between sympathetic and dorsal, because that is not healthy for our bodies, our minds, or our souls. So now that you have an idea of the autonomic nervous system, what the heck it does, the central nervous system, and how imperative it is that we do this type of healing, let's talk about the vagus nerve. I love the vagus nerve. Oh my goodness, I could talk about the vagus nerve all day. But I'll keep this as short and sweet as possible. So the vagus nerve, or vagal nerves, are the main nerves of our parasympathetic nervous system that control our bodily functions such as digestion, our immune system, and our heart rate, to name a few. I like to say it's the epicenter of our mind-body connection. So the signals that are carried along the vagus nerve through our guts and our organs influence our brain, right? And these signals, which are really just like messages, affect how we feel, affect the decisions we make, and they really do influence our actions in our daily lives. So when we work to tone the vagus nerve, we're actually creating internal safety within our bodies and therefore our minds. Amazing, right? And like our vagus nerve, it starts in our at the back of our head in our cranial, connected to a cranial nerve, like right back here. And it actually travels down through your heart, through all of your organs, and then ends for women at our cervix. So it travels through everything. And that's why it's so wonderful when we work to tone the vagus nerve, and eventually that's healing, our central nervous system. You can see how we can really create feelings of safety and living in ventral, or also known as social engagement. So some simple ways that you can tone your vagus nerve: singing. Even if you don't have a good voice, trust me, I do not have the most, melodic voice out there, but I love to sing. And so singing is just so wonderful, whether you're singing in the car while you're driving, you're singing in the shower, you're singing while you're cooking, just put on one of your favorite songs that you know all the words to and belt it out. Another really awesome one is humming. Right? If you're not comfortable singing, hum. And there's a beautiful breath that I'm just going to share with you now that's really powerful for helping tone the vagus nerve and also just calm yourself, because again, you're regulating your central nervous system, so that will take you to a space of feeling calm. It's called Brahmari breath, also known as honeybee breath, because it sounds like a honeybee. When you think about it, when we're humming, we kind of sound like honeybees. So it's super simple. You just inhale, and on the exhale, you're humming as you exhale. Okay, we'll do that 2 more times. Last one, do it with me. I don't know about you, but I just feel so relaxed and calm after I do that. So it's something to add to your daily practice if you can. Another great one is chanting. Chanting is so beautiful. I'm from Hindu descent, so chanting is very close to my culture and to who I am as a person. And I actually chant multiple times a day, different chants for different reasons. One of the chants that I do is specifically for healing the whole body. And so if you want to learn this chant, then feel free to reach out to me. This is something I do with my clients on a more consistent basis. But a really simple chant that you can do is just Om, right? Om is the primordial sound. It is the sound of the universe. It is ultimately healing. So you would just inhale, Om. Does the similar thing as Brahmari breath or humming. Another one would be gargling. Gargling is great. I always gargle after I brush my teeth. So I find that when I do that, I'm like, oh, I'm toning my vagus nerve, and just like in the morning and in the evening, right? So that's a super simple one. Alternate nostril breathing, which I have taught in other workshops many times within this container, within this mental health and wellness virtual workshops. So just to remind you, if you forget, or if you've never done it before, use your dominant hand. I'm right-handed. And so you allow your index finger and ring finger to fall down. You're using your thumb and your middle finger, your ring finger, right? So your ring finger would cover your left nostril, your thumb would cover your right, and that's if you're working with your right hand. So doing this with your dominant hand would be opposite. Now your pinky can just hang out, it doesn't have to do anything. And basically you're just covering the nostrils, so you're breathing in one at a time. So you would take a regular breath, and then you'd inhale, close the left nostril, exhale out the right. Breathe in through the right, close, exhale out the left. Breathe in through the left, close, exhale out the right. And you just repeat that as many times as you need. I actually practice that for about 10 minutes a day. A super easy one also is a cold compress to the back of your neck. So just like wetting a washcloth, making it really cold and leaving it there, that's going to tone the vagus nerve. It's also just like feels really good. Exposing yourself to sunlight. It's actually very imperative for the circadian rhythm to expose yourself to sunlight first thing in the morning. So if you can't get outside, at least try to be by a window in your home that offers a lot of sunlight. Laughing is a great one. Laughing tones the vagus nerve, and like, who doesn't love to laugh? And then two, that would be something you probably have to go see practitioners for, would be acupuncture and reflexology. And those are just some, right? Like there's so many more, but these are all ones that I do almost pretty much daily for at least most of them, or, you know, weekly, monthly. Like acupuncture and reflexology, I don't do daily, but I do them often. Now, creating internal safety is something that takes time and consistency, right? So when we're working to heal our central nervous systems, consistency is key. So these are just some practices that will assist you in creating internal safety. Bringing your hands over your heart and taking a few deep breaths. Yes, it is as simple as that. I know that's probably like, you're like, that seems too easy. But trust me, it is too easy. That's why I'm teaching it, because I really want you all to really feel safe to cultivate and embrace self-love. Now, something fun to note is that when we put our hands over our heart, it's like we're hugging our heart. Okay, that's what I say to my clients, give your heart a hug. And actually what happens when we do this is the same chemicals that fire in our brain when we receive a hug from someone, those same chemicals fire off when we hug our hearts. So that's why I like to say you're giving your heart a hug. It's so beautiful. Giving yourself permission to practice stillness and connect with yourself to understand how you can heal your wounds and trauma. And so a lot of us who are dealing with medical trauma, which is a result of, you know, different procedures that we have to go through, you know, you all living with cancer and me being a chronic illness warrior, it can be hard to get still. So if getting still is difficult for you, 30 seconds a day, and maybe that's with your hands over your heart, right? But practicing stillness is so powerful for our journeys, especially in a world where we're always go, 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 right? So I'm sure that a lot of you practice stillness already, because sometimes you might be forced into stillness because of pain or because of symptoms, but I want you to be intentional about your stillness, okay? So try to flip that narrative that you're being intentional with your stillness, not being forced into stillness. Deep breathing is another one. And deep breathing is when we're breathing from our belly or from our diaphragm, not from our chest, okay? When we breathe from our chest, it is shallow breathing, and that causes anxiety and other feelings of distress. Like I said, for toning the vagus nerve, chanting and humming, other great ways to create internal safety. Connecting with your body, so placing your hands on your body and taking a few deep breaths, so it doesn't have to be over your heart. Maybe it's on your legs, maybe it's hugging yourself, stuff like that. And then of course, co-regulation. And I'm talking about co-regulation with a trained professional. So a therapist, a counselor, or a healer, someone who knows the polyvagal lens, similar to me, who can help you create internal safety in your body and hold you through the process. Because sometimes it's hard to self-regulate if we've never had someone to co-regulate with. So what the heck does self-love look like then, right? So I'm sharing some examples that are kind of not out of the box, but maybe not what you would first think of when it comes to self-love. Because some of us think of like going to the spa and having a bubble bath and, you know, treating yourself to a little piece of cake or cupcake or whatever the case may be. And yes, those are all great ways to practice self-love. But these are ways that might, you know, spark some ideas or some ahas, and that are really, really doable and practical. So first would be being intentional about unplugging on a daily basis. We are super overstimulated in our daily life, and I'm talking about specifically by electronics, our computer, our phone, our tablet, television, radio, list goes on. And so this is also an opportunity for you to disconnect from social media. And I like to say that when we disconnect from social media, it's kind of like a detox for our spirit, because we're able to reconnect with ourselves and not all these other energies, these other ways of being overstimulated by other people's lives and what we see. So being intentional also means doing something healthy for yourself, going for a walk, reading a book, cooking your favorite meal, meditating, right? It's really important that you schedule this time for yourself and do your best to hold yourself accountable, right? If you don't unplug every day at first, like, this is completely normal. It takes time, but soon enough, you're going to really learn to love these moments where you're unplugging and truly being present. And this is why healing our central nervous system is so imperative, because it's hard to be present if you have a dysregulated nervous system, because you're constantly fretting, thinking, overwhelmed about the triggers, the trauma, and the wounds. Okay. So like I said, unplugging is great because it not only does it improve our ability to live in the present moment, but it also improves our sleep. It supports a deeper connection with ourselves and others. It increases our productivity and encourages less dependence on electronics, which we are also dependent on these days. Practicing meditation, which is why we're going to do a meditation today at the end of this workshop. So practicing meditation is a wonderful way to practice relaxing and to show yourself some self-love, right? Meditation is proven to reduce feelings of anxiety, which is so imperative, because if we're anxious, it's hard for us to cultivate and embrace self-love. And so there's formal practices like of meditation that include like a seated silent meditation where you're sitting in stillness, it's silent, and you're just breathing and being with yourself. There's mindfulness meditation, which is really like helping you connect with the present moment. There's yoga, right? But meditation can be guided by audio, video, or through written words. So guided meditation is sometimes similar to a mindfulness meditation. But I also want to just reiterate, meditation is whatever you want it to be. Okay, it can really be achieved through any activity that you find enjoyable and relaxing: cooking, gardening, walking in nature, swimming, dancing, having a bath. The list goes on. So when you're working to embrace self-love, and meditation is, something you want to include in your self-love practice, then really choose an activity that works for you, that brings you joy, and start slowly, right? It sometimes can be so overwhelming for our nervous systems to go from 0 to 100, right? So don't expect yourself to necessarily do it every day, but try to do it a couple times a week and then build up from there. And again, start small. Maybe it's only 5 minutes when you start your meditation practice. You build it up to 10, 20, so forth. Practicing healthy sleep hygiene is so important. So when you're going through, as much as all of you are, living with cancer, or even, recovering from cancer, being in remission, rest can be hard. Sleep can be hard because there's so many things affecting your circadian rhythms. So proper sleep hygiene is so imperative. And this includes, but again, isn't limited to, being consistent with when you go to bed, removing your electronics from your bedroom, avoiding large meals and caffeine before bed. Super simple, right? Sometimes though, when we think about it, we're like, oh my gosh, but I do all of that, right? Because it's become so normal to eat late, to not go to bed at the same time every day, and to have our phone attached to our hip, right? Or our computer beside our bed because we were watching Netflix till we fell asleep, right? And all of those things are okay, but it's not assisting you in having a restful sleep, and that's what we want. So you can improve your sleep hygiene by being consistent with some of the following. And these are just coming from, my experience, as well as what I teach with my clients. Your skincare routine, making sure you're always washing your face before bed and brushing your teeth. even if you don't have makeup on or whatever, even if you didn't really go outside, like it's so imperative to take care of our skin. Staying consistent with the time you go to bed, doing your best to go to bed around the same time each night, or like a half an hour window between that. Making sure the room lighting and temperature is comfortable. It's going to look a little bit different for all of us because we all have different body temperatures. But really making sure if you need a fan or if you need to have a window open, or, you know, you want your best to not have too much light coming in because that can also affect our sleep. My suggestion is to put your phone, if you can't remove it from your room because maybe it has your alarm on it, at least mine does. I sometimes think to myself, I should just buy an alarm clock. But anyway, put your phone on airplane mode as soon as you start your nighttime toolkit or your sleep hygiene. I like to say nighttime toolkit, and I've taught this in other workshops about creating a nighttime toolkit. It's like 3 to 4, maybe 5 things you do before bed that help you wind down, right? So in my nighttime toolkit, I do my skincare and brushing my teeth. I read my book. I do a little bit of chanting. I do my alternate nostril breathing, and then I do a yoga nidra. So that helps me wind down and have like the best sleeps. And trust me, I'm someone who used to be almost an insomniac because of my medication. So I've really been able to release myself from the insomnia and practice healthy sleep hygiene. And so I put my phone on airplane mode before I start my nighttime toolkit, and then I keep it on until after I've completed my morning routine. So that means when I wake up, I'm not right away grabbing my phone to check Instagram or my email or my texts or the news. No, I am waiting until I've done my morning routine. So I'm making sure I'm filling up my cup first before I go and help others fill up their cups, right? Or I'm tending to my energy first before I go interact with other people's energies. And morning routine is going to look different for everybody. My morning routine is a little bit longer because I tend to get up pretty early. So I like to read right first thing when I get up. I drink bone broth before I even make my cup of tea. I have some warm lemon water, and then I make my tea. And when I'm making my tea, I try to make it a very meditative practice of listening to the water boil and being intentional about pouring and breathing in the scent of the tea and sipping slowly. And then I like to do my alternate nostril breathing again. I do a Kriya meditation, which Kriya meditation is a form of Kundalini yoga. I chant, I journal, I connect with spirit through tarot because I'm a tarot reader, and that's just something very close to me. And then I do 3 different types of chants in the morning. Now that might sound overwhelming, but that's something that works for me. I have a client where their morning routine is only 15 to 30 minutes. They get up, they brush their teeth, they do their thing, they make their cup of coffee, they do some deep breathing, they do a couple stretches, and then they're good to go, right? So you come up with your morning routine. Again, this is something we did in past workshops of creating our morning routines along with our nighttime toolkits. And then last but not least, avoid stressful, stimulating activities before bed. So doing work or discussing emotional issues. These are really, they really boost the cortisol, the stress hormone in our body, which increases alertness. And like the more cortisol we have in our bodies, the harder we're going to have the time to falling asleep. Okay, moving your body. Yes, we love to move our bodies. So physical activity is a great way to show yourself some love. It's a stress reliever. It releases endorphins, makes you feel good. It's a healthy way to cope with stress and distracts from pessimistic thinking, right? And I'm not saying distracts as in we're numbing and we're avoiding, no, but just getting yourself into a different energy so that when you need to go back to the things that are stressing you out, you have a clear head to process, okay? So these are just some examples. Put some music on and dance, sing along and tone the vagus nerve. Go for a walk after dinner instead of sitting down and watching Netflix. Walk to the store instead of driving. Use the stairs instead of the elevator. Of course, if you have the energy, always honor your body. Have a workout buddy or someone who can keep you accountable and stay on track. practice yoga, which is why, as a yoga teacher, I bring a lot of the yoga classes into this mental health and wellness virtual program because it's so healthy and important and really wonderful for self-love. Maybe play a game with your kids or your partner. That could be a board game. That could be outside. I mean, a board game, you're not really moving your body the same way. So maybe you're playing like on the Wii or, outside at the park, going skating, going for a swim, practicing Tai Chi or Qigong. Again, making sure it's something you enjoy and something you can stick with, something that works for your life and your practice. And then, of course, practicing self-compassion. Be kind to yourself. Rome wasn't built in a day, like they say, and these practices do take time to integrate. We need to practice them in order to make them habitual in our lives. And also, the practicing equals consistency, which equals healing our central nervous system. And that's what we want to do. But that being said, do your best not to be hard on yourself if you forget to do something or you aren't feeling up to it. Like, we're so allowed to have bad days. We're so allowed to have off days where we just don't feel like doing the things where, that we know will help. We just don't have the energy. That's okay too, because you're showing yourself love by practicing self-compassion. Okay, so that was a lot. I need to take a sip of water. I feel like I just talked so much because I did. Okay, drinking water, also wonderful way to practice self-love. So these are some journal prompts that I'm going to share. Write them down in your journal, in a notebook, on a sticky note, whatever works for you, and make it an intention to yourself to go through and answer them, okay, on your own time. The first one is, what does self-love even mean to you, right? Self-love is going to look different for all of us. So defining what self-love is to you is going to help you actually stay accountable to your self-love practice and to embracing this. And for me, self-love is prioritizing my needs. That's my simple definition, prioritizing my needs. And that can show up in so many different ways. So for me, like, I don't like to feel confined. And so that definition kind of feels expansive and open to me. So, maybe I need to prioritize having a midday nap or going to bed early or, cooking a nourishing meal or doing yoga or doing another type of workout class or going for a walk, and, the list goes on, right? So that's why, defining what it means to you is really going to help. And now I want you to think about some self-love activities that you currently practice. Is that writing? Is that journaling? Is that, spending time with your loved ones? Is it, even like sending your loved one a gift in the mail, right? Like, there's so many ways, because when we show other people love, we're actually showing ourselves love too, because we're all reflections of one another. That's a topic for another time. But yeah, just think about some ways you already practice self-love. It's really important to acknowledge and appreciate what you already do, because it is helping, right? Even if you are dealing with stress and you're living with a dysregulated nervous system, there are still things you're doing to practice self-love. And then, what are some self-love practices that you want to incorporate into your life? Make a promise to yourself that you will prioritize incorporating these activities, okay? So maybe it's that you need to work on your sleep hygiene. There you go. Maybe it's that you've never done yoga and that's something you want to get into. Super good, right? Super easy. Maybe it's even a new hobby or something you've always wanted to try, like painting with watercolor or making pottery, right? There's so many ways that we can show ourselves love. So Just let your imagination go wild. You never know what will come and what will really work for you. And then what does your perfect day look like? Like if you were to have do all the self-love practices all of the time in one day, what would that day look like for you? List it out, maybe even write it out. 7 a.m., wake up and move slow to before I make my coffee or whatever the case may be. And then also reflect and ask yourself, what does it feel like? What does it feel like in your body? Does your body feel safe? Do you feel cozy? Do you feel secure? Do you feel warm? Right? And if you're not used to connecting with your body that way or thinking from that perspective, it might be a little bit odd to answer that question, but do your best. Gratitude is such an imperative piece of self-love. So, do you have a daily gratitude practice? If yes, how can you enhance it? What is your daily gratitude practice? Is it when you wake up, you list 3 things you're grateful for before your feet touch the ground about getting out of bed? And then before you go to sleep at night, you tell yourself 3 things that happened that day that you're grateful for, or you write it down? And if not, if you don't have a daily gratitude practice, how can you incorporate this into your life daily? I just said 2, right? Having a gratitude journal is so helpful, okay? Especially if you're new to practicing gratitude, it's not something you do often. Having a journal that you can dedicate to writing what you're grateful for in the morning and the evening is so helpful. Specifically, when you are writing your gratitudes in the evening, try to focus on what's happened in the last 24 hours. Okay, because that's going to help signal to your brain and to your body that there's always something to be grateful for, especially when you're going through journeys like you are with living with cancer. And it can feel very daunting and overwhelming and scary and unfair. All of that is valid, but you still have reasons to be grateful, right? You're breathing, you're alive, you have a home, you have a roof over your head, you have food you can eat. Those are just some simple ones, right? Or some basic ones, but maybe it's the love you receive from your kitty cat or your dog. The fact that you took the time to practice stillness that day, or you had a midday nap. Like those are all things to be grateful for too. This is one of my favorite prompts is what are your feelings telling you right now? Remember, your feelings are tools to go deeper. And when we are in touch with our feelings and our emotions, we are really embracing self-love. So try to tune in and ask yourself this often, even if it's not writing it down in your journal like you are today or you are after this workshop. Ask yourself it throughout the day when you're making a cup of coffee or tea, when you're waiting for your lunch to warm up, whatever it is, right? Ask yourself this question, and I promise you'll be so proud of what your feelings can tell you and how you can lean deeper into self-love. The next question, sorry, is how can you continue to open your mind to new possibilities? As we start to cultivate internal safety within our body through, healing the central nervous system and toning the vagus nerve, we really can open up our mind to new possibilities because we feel safe to do so. So this question might be something you want to wait and answer after you've really started implementing some of those practices I mentioned on creating internal safety, as well as on toning the vagus nerve. Another great question to ask yourself often, or maybe even every day, is how do you want to feel in your body throughout the day? Do you want to feel safe? Do you want to feel energetic? Do you want to feel restful, relaxed? happy, open, right? There's so many different ways that we can tune into how we want to feel in our body. And I'm prompting this because so many of us do not connect with our bodies, right? So often, and what happens, what I see with my clients, those who I work with who do have chronic illness, who live with cancer and so forth, they wait until it's not too late, but they wait so long to go to the doctor and get something checked out because they're not tuning into their body. And so that's why I said, like, take time to be in stillness, place your hands on your body and breathe, because that's going to get you out of your mind and into your magical body where, our bodies hold infinite wisdom. They're always communicating with us, but we have to get still to listen and to hear the messages. So when you do this prompt, ask yourself this question as you hug your heart maybe and take some deep breaths and just find out how your body wants to feel throughout the day. And then, of course, I love this question because health habits are so wonderful for our self-love practices. And a lot of what I shared today on what self-love can look like are health habits. So how can you put your plans for new health habits into action today, right? So maybe that is that sleep hygiene aspect of things. So how are you going to take action on that today or tonight? Okay, so our self-love meditation, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen for this meditation because I need to play music and I can't do both at the same time. But I just want to note before we do our self-love meditation that our next session is on Wednesday, June 8th from 7 to 8 Eastern Standard Time. That is 4 to 5 Pacific. And it is a therapeutic art workshop. And I'm so excited to teach it because I am a therapeutic art life coach. I'm also trained in different forms of art therapy. And I have been using art as a form of a therapeutic practice since I was, 5 years old, since I was a little girl. Art is very near and dear to my heart. And I've been teaching therapeutic art for over 5 years. So I've seen time and time again how powerful it can be. Plus, you do not need to be an artist to join. This is not about creating a beautiful piece of art. It is about expressing yourself and giving yourself a safe space to release your emotions. Okay, so I always like to say that because people sometimes get a little bit nervous and I'm like, no, you don't have to be an artist, I promise. Okay, time for our self-love meditation. I'm gonna put my music on and we will get started. We are listening to the Devi prayer. It's one of my favorites. It's by Craig Pruess and Ananda, and it is the 108 sacred names of the Divine Mother. Okay, so it's a very healing, powerful song. Perfect for self-love. So I invite you to get comfortable. You can do this meditation seated or lying down, whichever feels best for you. And once you've chosen seated or lying down, once you've situated yourself, I want you to bring your awareness to your breath. Feeling your inhales and exhales flowing through your body like the waves of an ocean. And as you breathe, just begin to notice where your breath is in your body. If your breathing is in your chest, do your best to send it to your diaphragm, your belly. And as you breathe in, feel your breath traveling from your belly to your ribs, to your chest and your collarbones. And as you exhale, feel your breath traveling back down through your collarbones, your chest, your ribs, and your belly. Continuing to breathe like this on your own and just notice the sensations in your body as you bring in these full, fresh breaths of life. By breathing deeply, you are telling your body that it is safe to rest, to relax, and to be rejuvenated. And this is self-love in the simplest form. You can do this at any time, any day, so you can continue to love and accept yourself for the divine being that you are. In a society of instant gratification, we all fall victim to negative self-talk. When things don't go as planned, we get overwhelmed or triggered, this is normal. It can cause us to fall into these negative self-talk patterns. But whatever your negative self-talk is, it really does inhibit us from opening our heart spaces to the love that we deserve. So during this meditation, we are going to work on quieting that voice that tells us that we are not enough or that we don't deserve love. Continuing to focus on your breath, your deep belly breaths, feeling your belly rise on the inhale and gently contract on the exhale. When we practice deep belly breathing and bring our awareness to our breath, we are able to quiet that voice that tells us we're not good enough or that we don't deserve love, as well as helping to quiet those anxieties and doubts, fears and worries that tend to pop up on our daily basis. Breathing in and feeling your breath expanding through your entire body, bringing you courage, strength, resilience. And then breathing out, releasing your fears, anxieties, worries, and doubts. Again, breathing in and feeling the courage, strength, and resilience enter your body. Notice that this is a familiar feeling. You have been here before. Whether a specific memory comes to mind, or this is something that resonates to your daily life, breathe it in. Know that this is love. You are showing yourself love when you speak your mind, when you stand up for yourself, when you accomplish your dreams or your goals, or when you pull yourself out of a dark place mentally. Self-love is whenever you show up for you with wholesome, good intentions. Allow your next 3 breaths to fully breathe into these feelings of self-love. Breathing in and beginning to flood your mind with all of the things you love about yourself. Breathing out and letting that flood spill out, releasing any feeling of the notion that you are not worthy of love. You are worthy of love. Love is worthy of you. Let your breath be a guide in connecting your heart and your mind with love. Inhaling and feeling the love envelop you like a bright light, starting in the pit of your belly and expanding through the top of your head, the tips of your fingers, your entire body. Exhaling and letting the light of love radiate inside, feeling it tingling from the inside out. And remembering that this feeling of love is within you always. Loving ourselves is a practice. Like meditation, we must practice self-love through positive self-talk, expanding the wonderful things about ourselves and challenging the negative thoughts as soon as they arise. So hear yourself saying the following with conviction in your mind. When I love myself unconditionally, I am able to show that same love to others. I am committing to loving myself today. I allow this love for myself to grow each and every day. I am worthy of this feeling and the joys that come with it. No matter what happens or the decisions I make, I choose to support myself with love. I deserve love. I deserve respect. When my self-love grows, my self-esteem follows. I love and accept every part of myself. Every part of me that makes me who I am is encompassed with love. Take a beautiful big inhale, sending gratitude to yourself for showing up for today's workshop, to open your heart space and truly be in the presence of self-love and learning to embrace self-love. Exhaling and feeling all of this love and acceptance you've cultivated for yourself today. Remember, you can access this at any time. You just need your breath and an open heart. On your next inhale, begin to wiggle your fingers and wiggle your toes. Maybe roll out your wrists and your ankles. Take a big stretch if that's what you need. Then bringing your hands to prayer in front of your heart center, bowing your head. The divine light in me honors the divine light in you. Namaste. Taking your time to open your eyes and come back, there's no rush. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day, your evening, whenever you're watching this, to embrace self-love. I hope that you learned a lot, and I hope that you'll take these practices and implement them in your life. Know that if you ever need more support, you can always reach out to me through my YouTube channel or through my email, which you can find on the Hope for Stomach Cancer website. Thank you so much, and I'll see you soon.